What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my mid-season wide receiver rankings. So if you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the new graphics, what you think of the new list, because this is going to be different than anybody else's that you've ever seen, because I like to actually like players that, not everybody else does. It's just me being honest, and could I be wrong? 100%, but I feel pretty confident in my wide receiver evals. Let's see how it goes. And, again, I don't think anybody's going to be coming close to the list I have. So stay buckled in because this is going to be a fun ride. Let's start it off with my number one receiver. This isn't out of the blue. It's Quentin Johnston. Again, look at that frame, 6'4", 200 pounds. It's a very solid frame. He fills it out very well. It's not like he's a stick at 6'4". So, again, you see someone like A.T. Perry, and then something I'll bring up in a little bit, like Quentin Johnston is very, very well built, and I got to see him in person versus SMU, where of course they destroyed us, but let's get past that. But again, Quentin Johnston, he's evolved his game. He's gotten stepped up multiple times, and I love that. Again, he's a big receiver, but he's really fluid. He's good after the catch, and just overall, I just love his game. He's really just taken a step up, and I love guys who put effort into their craft. That's why I was a big Jordan Davis hater until the combine, because I don't care about the combine stats necessarily, but when you got to see even his face looked way thinner, like you could tell that he put a lot of effort in, and that just shows that mentality, that drive. And seeing Quentin Johnston totally revamp his route running, revamp his after the catch ability, it really made him look that much more special. So big fan Quentin Johnston right there. Obviously, he has some of the best hands in the class. He's pretty much the go-get-it guy there for TCU. Big fan of that. And then, of course, he's not going to be a 4.2 guy, but I seriously think he's 4.4, and that's great. Again, he's more than requisite at speed. I'm really nitpicking here. Again, he fills out his weight very well, but again, if he could be 220 at that size, which we'll talk about very soon, of a guy who fills out that role, then, it'd be even more nice. But yeah, I mean, the only issue is versus SMU, I did feel like he was more left out than he was in recent games. Again, super big nitpick. Obviously, you see the grade. I don't like to give out anything above an 80, like really ever. So when I do, that really does like show how much I really love him. And I do think he'll end up going in the top 10. Again, he's been performing off the charts. And more importantly, he's a great large wide receiver. And a lot of teams are looking for that X. You see how George Pickens is on the Steelers. There's going to be that new demand for the true X wide receiver, and he fits that very well. Chicago's going to need one. Jacksonville's going to need one. Hell, the Lions could even be that desperate. I don't think they will, to be fair. But when looking at dream fits, obviously, this is not factoring in draft position. Again, if he fell to the second Lions pick, I would be super huge fan of that. You don't need DJ Chark in that situation. You have your true X for the next 5 years on a very cheap contract. The Jaguars are obviously looking for someone to be a true X, not Zay Jones. So it'd be very nice to see him step up into that role. And then the Steelers, there's potentially Chase Claypool leaving. So Quentin Johnston, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. We all know the Steelers know how to build a wide receiver core. It's not exactly like, again, you could throw the Packers in there. You could throw any team, the Bears. I just want to have a little bit of fun with it. Next off, we have Jordan Addison. Obviously, he's had a tremendous season transferring from Pittsburgh to USC to follow Lincoln Riley. Obviously, he's been absolutely awesome. He makes the football game look simple, look easy, look natural, and that's a really good tendency to have because, again, he's on a roster full of talent, and he still takes it up another notch. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Addison. I really do think he's going to be an excellent number 2 in the NFL. He's probably going to be a number 2 that can be productive as a number 1, but at that size, it's going to be very difficult versus these larger corners, especially guys versus like Tariq Woolen, where they have the size and the speed to be able to truly be a true number 1. But I see teams where like you have Mac Jones and even Bailey Zappi for that matter, who have played with more speedy wide receivers. I'm more so referencing Mac Jones and Jalen Waddle / Devontae Smith, where it's a really good fit. And you see Brandon Cooks potentially being traded. I can see it going to the Texans there. And then, of course, the Colts could always use somebody to potentially replace Paris Campbell. But overall, I mean, when you do look at his game, Jordan Addison brings almost everything to the table except really size. And like he's still developing his route tree. He's gotten better at it, which I love seeing a self-improver. Again, I'm a huge fan of it. And again, at his size, he's just not going to be able to play every role that you want him to be in. But overall, as a guy, he's a really good football player. And again, that X factor, that ability to look so comfortable playing football is truly something that not many people have. And it can only pop off to you when you watch him. He just looks comfortable playing the game. And that's very hard to do when you have very little experience against high level talent. But he just comes in and just makes it look like he's been doing it for the past 30 years. And it's awesome. It's really great to see that. And, I really hope that it continues to the next level because he can be a kick-ass player for those teams. Next, we are going to deal with Xavier Hutchinson. My wide receiver 1B starting out the year, he still is sitting pretty in the top 5. And it had nothing to do with him being knocked down. Other guys have just been going up. Now, he did have that nasty drop versus Texas, but he had like 6 other catches that were ungodly, so I'm going to give him a pass. I will, but again, this guy has just been absolutely monstrous. He's literally Iowa State's whole entire offense. Like, you can just tell he pops off, man. Like, people who don't see that in him, I seriously don't understand. He really is awesome. I'm such a huge fan. But he doesn't have that polish. He doesn't have the release package that you're looking for. But I really do think that is trainable. I do think that he certainly can develop some of those polished things, those nuances, those intricacies at the position. So, again, there's so much to like about him. He might not be perfect, but he has an amazing foundation where, like, if Justin Fields needs someone to bail him out, that's a great spot to be. Or Jared Goff, if you're trying to pick an early second-round pick, or I believe he's going to go in the top 40. Again, you look at that size, 6'3", 210. He moves very well for that size. And then Robert Woods, obviously, probably going to be on the way out with the Titans. I think that is another good spot for him to fill. Like, there are a lot of really good spots for him to go, and not a lot of people are talking about this guy. I'm very excited. There's been one mock draft I looked at so far that had him in the first. I don't think he goes there as much as I would love him to. He's a really damn good player. I'm glad to see that he at least has enough hype to get somewhere in that mix. Next, we got Justin Shorter. Here we go. So this is, again, one of those players where I know I have him up here and no one else does, and I think they will. He's taken a big step up. He had a nasty injury last year versus UCF. There's videos on it on YouTube, and I'm happy to see he's back. The thing is, it's not that he's just back. He's back and better, and that's awesome. I'm such a huge fan of that. He's super smooth for a route runner at his size. It's really weird. You look at that 6'4", 223. This guy moves like maybe 95% Quentin Johnston. And it's really incredible. He was the #1 wide receiver coming out of high school, and he still is a top-tier wide receiver. And again, you guys can read. You guys don't need to see everything I'm talking about. But again, teams that could really use him, I have a feeling this was from the quarterback slide. I did not do the dream fits for him, but we'll do it on the fly. Love to have always one mistake per video. Shows you guys I'm human. But if I were to say good fits for him, because those 3 teams, not the teams I would put on that list, to be blunt. Again, the Steelers, I really do think that would be a great Chase Claypool replacement. Similar size to speed ratio, and again, I think they'd fit a very similar role. Obviously, I would like the Bears. Again, love the ability to have a bailout guy there. And the Packers, again, he's big enough to be able to be a little bit more than what Christian Watson is as a deep threat. So I really like that ability to be a true number 1, a true X wide receiver. I do think he'll go late too because of the fact he had that nasty injury, and he hasn't been the #1 dude in college for ever. Like, he's never been that type of guy, and he transferred from Penn State. So again, he found his home, and I'm excited to say that he certainly is worth that type of pick. Now, Zay Flowers was, I believe, my wide receiver 4 coming into the year. I'm a big fan of the guy. He's still Boston College's whole offense, and he's just absolutely awesome. He's the reason I didn't like Andrew Booth that much. I put him as a second because of that factor, and I'm proud to say that it wasn't because Andrew Booth sucked. It's because this guy looked like a baller, and I'm a huge fan of him. Again, 5'10", 177 is a little bit sketchy. Obviously, I would love for him to be a little bit more, but you see from the image alone, it's not like he is probably as lean as you can get. So you know that he's at least a full 177. It's not like he could potentially lose it by being better in terms of his regimen of working out. But overall, he's super polished. I'm a huge fan of him. I wish he could break more tackles after the catch. I really do. But again, when people are looking at you the whole entire time because there's really nobody else that Jurkovic's targeting, it's understandable. But again, I don't really need to talk about the fits with the Titans to the Colts, but The Chargers would absolutely love a guy who has great deep tracking, has great routes, and just gets open for Justin Herbert. I'm a big fan. I really am. Now, let's go to Jackson Smith and Jigba here. Everyone's like, oh my God, he's at number 6? You have to be batshit crazy. And I know I'm going to get those comments. The fact is, you cannot tell me that he's better than Marvin Harrison. He's not better than Garrett Wilson. He's not better than Chris Olave. So he might be better than Emeka Egbuka, but I don't even know about that. Emeka, I believe, is 220 pounds. So he's wide receiver 4 or 5 on his college team. And we're trying to say he's the number 1 in this draft. And it's like, no. And there's a reason why you see him falling in drafts. I think he fits a very simple role, and I do like the role that he can play in the NFL. He runs a very smooth route, and I love that. He has very smooth movement skills. Now, I don't think that his route running gets him enough separation, but I love the fact that he can change directions fluidly, and that's a really good foundation to be at. Now, he's been, I believe, dealing with a hamstring injury as well as a concussion this year, so injuries have gotten up to him. But, again, you can put him on the outside, you can put him on the inside. He has great hands, and he's super fluid. He has the intricacies down. Now, he got tracked down by a linebacker that ran 4.53, which means that speed definitely is something you need to watch out for this guy. Because, again, I think he could be running 4.6. I think Treylon Burks looked just as fast as him, if not faster. So you do have to take that into account. Now, teams like the Jaguars would absolutely love it. You have Laviska Shenault that didn't pan out, so you got rid of him. But he could be the guy who is what Laviska was not. The Steelers, again, don't need to explain that. And same thing with the Titans. Again, you really do have to worry when you're not even a top 3 receiver in your own receiving core. You're not a solidified top 3 receiver right now, and you pretty much were the number 3 last year. It really brings into question, what are you going to do in the NFL when you need to be the number 1? Like, you weren't over the other guys. So, again, it's a tough comparison. You're going against 2, if not 4, first-round quality wide receivers. Then we got KAYSHON Boutte. This has nothing to do with his talent, and he's not a grade 57.75, so RIP to the grade. His grade's, I believe, 72.25. So, there we go. Gotta love again. Another mistake. But he's a really good talent. I am a big fan of KAYSHON Boutte. He drops the ball way too much. His own wide receivers shit-talk him and say, hey, I'm better than that guy. Which, I mean, again, players like to do that because we're in the NIL era. But still, he had issues in week 1 with not getting targets. He had a game where he had 1 reception for 4 yards. And there are legitimate concerns. I think he should transfer. I don't think he should come out right now. He can end up being a top wide receiver next year. And then rather than being number 7 and teams being like, well, I don't know, he could end up being a number 3 wide receiver in the draft, a number 2 again. And that gives you a lot of money. So personally, I think that KAYSHON should probably do that. But again, I'm a huge guy on seeing progression year after year. When I don't see it from KAYSHON, because again, I was really hoping like, hey, you're coming back from injury, so maybe like deal with like work on the jugs machine. He didn't. He has a lot of drops, so that really does suck. But he does have ungodly talent. Like, you do see it on the screen. So I really hope that I'm wrong. I really hope that he returns and then just shows us that, this guy's still the dog in the NFL. So next, we got Josh Downs, and this guy's awesome. Again, another guy who people feature in the first round. So this is a really deep wide receiver core. Again, why I think KAYSHON should go back. But overall, I think this guy is absolutely great. His route running is so smooth. He's a very fluid mover as well. And again, just overall, there's not much that's wrong with him except for the fact that he's not a very big guy. And I want him to break tackles more. But again, he's 180 pounds. It's not like you can break tackles that easily. We saw the same thing with Zay Flowers. When you're smaller, sometimes it's not easy to break tackles from dudes who are like legitimately 60 pounds heavier than you. So it might just come with the size. But featuring the Packers for the first time, Packers can be on any of these wide receiver lists, man. Like, honestly, maybe except Raheem Jarrett, which we'll talk about soon. Number 9, we got A.T. Perry. So if you look at him, he looks a lot thinner than Quentin Johnston. So he doesn't fill out that 6'5" frame nearly as well as Quentin Johnston fills out at 6'4" at the same weight. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But he still is he's a really good player. He's another guy who just took a really big step up this year. I'm very happy to see it. I mean, I would love to see him replace AJ Green or just be on the other side of Drake London. Again, the Lions could always use an X wide receiver. So if they want to spend a 3rd round pick on him, makes sense. Regardless, you do see him taking steps up in every single category to the point where he looks more athletic as well. I'm a big fan of guys who continue to work on their craft, so I got to tip my cap to A.T. Perry, who's been on the stock report multiple times this year. The only issue is he's kind of a jack-of-all-trades, master of none, and I don't like the Wake Forest offensive scheme. Not exactly translatable to the NFL. And then we got number 10 with one honorable mention after with Jermaine Burton. Again, really good player. He did not take the step up that we wanted him to this year. Brochmel was going to have him as a 1st-round quality player. I think he did at the beginning. It was probably like wide receiver 3 or something. I was never on that hype train. I think he was number 7 for me. But regardless, he definitely hasn't taken that step. And it's a little bit unfortunate because I was hoping that he would take it. I didn't think he would. He didn't. But again, for a 3rd round pick, I would just love to be able to take a shot on him, and maybe he could take a step up in the right system. But, Bryce Young does a very good job of making his style of wide receiver look better than they are. And again, no shame to Jameson Williams, but he was pretty much nothing at Ohio State and then became an absolute baller at Alabama. It's not just Jameson Williams that can do that. It also requires Bryce Young. So to see Jermaine Burton not even take one step up is a very big concern, but teams that can definitely use a wide receiver 2 or just take a shot on one are listed there. And then last but not least, Rakim Jarrett. Super speedy. He is pretty much the only reason he's on this list is because of just pure speed. This guy should probably run in the low 4.3s, if not high 4.2s. He randomly looks thinner now, so I would be considering him probably around like 185 pounds. Like, he just looks thinner than in that image that I have of him right there. Regardless, he has a pretty defined role. That's the only issue. You know exactly what you're getting. So if you want a Jalen Guyton replacement, pretty good guy to do so. But again, you guys can read. This guy definitely has a lot of really good stuff that you could want, especially for a late day 2 pick. So let me know what you guys think. Who should have been on this list? Because I know a lot of people are going to say Trey Palmer. He just did not make the list. And I'm going to rewatch him in the offseason, but I've already done my season. I've already watched him for this season. So I'm a little bit worried. But again, all 22 tape is very scarce. So a lot of these grades are tentative. All the grades are tentative until the end, until the draft actually happens. But it's very hard to get down to the super nitty gritty when you can like really slow it down. So again, once the season ends, once the all 22 fully flows through, that's when we'll really see who's the best and who's the worst. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.